Hey, it's Mark with Mark's House of Cars, and today I was at a car show, and the Countach actually won Best Foreign Car, so that was cool to see, but that's not why we're doing this video. We're doing this video because there was a 1988 red on red Jalpa, just like my Countach, which is also red on red, in 1988, and we got to be right up front, and it was really cool to see the two cars together. So these were the only two cars Lamborghini produced in 1988. Note I said cars. They did have the LM002, but that was a truck. So it's kind of like the big V12. Well, not really big, but as far as car goes, but the engine was big. You've got the Countach with the V12 and then the Jalpa with the V8. And a lot of people think the Jalpa is kind of the small baby Lambo. The Jalpa is actually bigger than the Countach. And a lot of people think the Countach is this big car. It's not. It's actually fairly small. And I did not know this would happen, but I actually got a chance to drive the car as well. So that was really cool to experience. And thank you to Victor at High Mountain Classics in Fort Collins who let me drive it. And I can give you my thoughts on that, the car as a whole, and then compare the two a little bit as well. Now, I mentioned these are both red on red cars, and as far as I know, and most people I've talked to, Lamborghini did not make red on red cars, even in the 80s when they did everything as crazy as possible. My car was white. It was painted red later on. This Jalpa was also white and painted red later on. So that's how we got those color combos. This might be the first time in history that a red on red Countach is sitting next to a red on red Jalpa. Who knows? And we do have some better views of the interior, a little bit cleaned up later on. But the Jalpa has a nice feature in that the roof comes up. You know, the sport roof still has a gauge shifter, and so your head doesn't quite hit the top. But with me sitting in there, it was a little bit tight, just like the Countach. I'm 6'1". My head or hair would have hit the top. But you can see way, way better out of this car. The sitting position is higher. It feels more like a normal sports car, not like the crazy low exotic that the Countach is. The Jalpa looks really cool in person. I've always kind of loved the looks, in magazines and in pictures online, but it is a cool car. The tires are only 225 wide. I'm not sure the wheels are my favorite, but they are stock. But otherwise, especially for the 80s, a very interesting and unique and rare car as well. I think they made about 400 of these from 81 to 88, whereas they made like 1,900 Countaches from 74 to 89. So a shorter run, but they still did not make very many of these. Now, I don't know if you can tell in the video, but the Countach is about 3 inches shorter than the Jalpa. So I know people think the Jalpa is very small. The Countach is definitely lower. It is wider than the Jalpa, but the Jalpa is heavier. It is about 3,350 pounds, whereas the Countach, my version, is about 3,250 pounds. Now, the earlier versions were lighter. The first ones were 2,800. Then we got to close to 3,000. But when they added parts and fender flares and bigger wheels, all of that all added weight, bigger motor. But the Jalpa is not quite as intimidating as the Countach looking in the motor. That is the V8 right there, 3.5 liter V8, 255 horsepower. So again, not an incredible amount of power, but this was also the 1980s when, a Mustang had 205 horsepower. Your Camaro had 200 if it was lucky, like the high performance version. It was tough to get power back then with all the emissions and rules. Now, something interesting that I'd never seen before is both of these cars had a maximum weight of 455 pounds for the interior. So I guess you've got to make sure you're somewhat in shape with two people in the car. Again, the motor's completely different. There's a V12 where you can see everything and all the wires, and it actually kind of makes it a little bit easier to work on because everything's exposed, but it looks intimidating compared to the Jalpa motor. This car is 420 horsepower, fuel injected, and they don't feel that different, though, and we'll talk about that and why. And I think that's one reason why people think the Countach is slow as well. The Countach has huge gearing, right? You can go to first gear. You can go to 60 in first gear. The Jalpa, you can go to 40 in first gear. You can't even get up to 60 in second gear. Completely different feel. So cars with short gears feel faster. Even if they aren't faster, you're accelerating quicker. You're getting through the RPMs quicker. I shouldn't say you're accelerating quicker. You're going through the RPMs quicker, so the seat of the pants feel is faster. But you're shifting more, which takes more time in these older cars, and you don't have the top speed. And I've seen different specs out there, from the top speed on this car is 133 to 160, but with the gearing so short, it's kind of hard to get up to 160. You run out of gearing. So I don't know which one is accurate, but the Countach, might feel the same seat of the pants fast, but you're actually going 20 miles per hour faster because of the gearing and how that's set up. Now, this car does have an aftermarket exhaust, so it sounds pretty good. My Countach needs an aftermarket exhaust. And we had another guy there looking at cars and talking about them, and I told him, my Countach is quiet. Be prepared for it. But the Jalpa sounded really good. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to film myself driving it. I wasn't really expecting this to happen. Didn't have, stuff set up. But it was a lot of fun. It sounded great, had great throttle response, an easier clutch than the Countach. Really fun car to drive. I didn't go crazy with it. I didn't, go above really 5,000 RPM because I don't think it's quite, all the way warm yet, even though Victor wanted me to drive it a little harder. I didn't want to. So just a really fun car. The brakes were a little scary, but again, I think this comes from a lot of people who drive Countaches, and it's a 1980s car, and it's not just a 1980s car, but it's a 1980s car. And what I mean is, it has 1980s technology, and it's also like almost 40 years old. So if they're not maintained perfect or have everything redone, it might not be even driving how it was supposed to drive. So it's really hard to judge these cars without knowing how good a shape they're in. And, the person who owns this car has many, many different cars, and I'm not sure how often he's driven this one. So it can be a little tricky. And then I filmed a couple of the other cool cars out there. That's Brennan Sullivan, who put on the car show. So thank you to him for doing that in that gorgeous E-Type. But as far as the driving experience, it was better than I thought it would be in the Jalpa, because I've heard they're slow. 1980s Lamborghini, it's just a small V8. But the throttle response was good. It sounded great. It had some pep to it. It was a fun car to drive. And I think part of that is the gearing. And the speedometer didn't work, so I wasn't really sure how fast I was going. It's just all seat of the pants. But it was a fun experience, fun car. And boy, it kind of makes me think, not that I want to buy any cars anytime soon, but that definitely put that car on my list of cars that I would be interested in having someday. And yeah, there was a pretty cool Cobra with a 6.2 liter supercharged motor. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the Ferrari Mondial, even though a lot of people think it's like the worst Ferrari ever made. I just thought they always looked cool. One of the first Ferraris I ever saw as a kid was a black one of these in California, and so it holds a special spot in my heart there. And I've just always liked the styling a little bit. I know some people don't, but I kind of dig those cars, and it's cool to see them. And then yeah, there are a couple other cool cars there. An Isetta, which is just a strange, crazy car. It will show here at the end. And if you thought it was odd driving a car with a dogleg transmission, well, wait till you see the Isetta's transmission. It's insane. This was a really cool car too, a Gran Turismo Studebaker, which I had never seen before, and they kind of give me like Lincoln Continental vibes, and they made, what did they say, there are 200 of these left on the road or something. They're kind of cool. I'm not a huge fan of, you know, older cars, but that one was pretty cool. So props to that. I have a 5.0 Mustang. That was a little bit crazy, but it's okay. DeLorean, of course. These are fun to look at, even though the crazy story of DeLorean, and they've got like 145 horsepower, but they're still fun and interesting cars. My daughter, who's 5, was very interested in the DeLorean, like that car. My son was looking for Bugattis. We did not see any Bugattis there, so sorry, Brecken. And then saw a few people there I knew, talked to a few people. It was actually a pretty nice Porsche 944 Turbo over there, like 21,000 miles. But I don't know if I got any video of it. You can see it in the background. That was a very nice car as well. Now, of course, the Isetta, like I said, is crazy. Like, probably the most dangerous car in the world, as small as it is. But what's weird is it's British, so even though the steering wheel is kind of like on the left side, but not really, your gear shift is on the left side, and it is like you start in the middle with first, and then go up and over to the left, and everyone who drives it's like, it's so confusing. I don't understand this car. But it's a fun day, fun to see the Jalpa, really fun to drive it, and it'd be interesting to drive both of those cars brand new, but not sure how we could do that. So we'll leave you with the Cobra leaving, and maybe I have a new car on my list. Who knows? The Jalpa was super fun, looks really cool, and not as cool as a Countach, I would agree with that, but pretty cool to drive another 1988 Lamborghini, especially one that wasn't a Countach. Definitely on my bucket list to have a little more up-close experience with one of those cars. If you've got a Jalpa, let me know what you think. If you've got a Jalpa and a Countach, which I know some people do, let me know what you think and how you compare them. Love to hear from others. And we'll be back with more videos. And of course, more experiences with the Countach and a few of the other cars I've got. Thanks for watching.